Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another college football video. Listen, man, I was wholeheartedly not planning on making a video today, but based on the events that took place last night, I just had to come on here and talk about, without a doubt, the craziest game I've ever seen. Georgia and Georgia Tech last night. Let's just get straight into it. I don't have a slideshow or nothing like that. I just wanted to talk about the game itself. I have not talked about an individual game since, ironically enough, Georgia Tech beat Florida State in the first game of the season. So it's kind of, a whole video about Georgia Tech's first and last games because consequential. Let's just go through first the play by play because if I try and just say whatever's on the top of my mind, this is going to be completely unorganized. Let's just go through chronologically what happened in this game. It started on the very first play. Georgia could not tackle Jamal Haynes, the Georgia Tech running back. They had him wrapped up in the backfield. I thought it was going to be like a 2 yard loss. Then all of a sudden, they don't blow the play dead, and he runs for 44 yards. That was the first play of the game, a 44-yard run by Georgia Tech, and that's how you knew Georgia's defense was in for a long night tonight. They end up not scoring here. They get that deep into UGA territory, but they settle for a field goal. Then Georgia, on their first possession, 3-and-out, which was concluded this possession by a drop by Arian Smith on third down, wide open, hit him in the hands. Carson Beck, good throw. And listen, Carson Beck, he's had his struggles this season. He had his struggles this game. There were points in this game where I'm like, man, Carson Beck is not playing well. But we'll get into it. He really turned that narrative around in the second half. But yeah, Georgia Tech, first play, massive run, score points, and then Georgia's first drive, 3-and-out. Back to Georgia Tech now. Yet again, they drive down the field. They get deep into Georgia territory, in the red zone, even, I believe, to the 25, rather. And 4th-and-1, they do not convert. Georgia stops them. So a massive stop by Georgia's defense. What does Georgia's offense do? As a result, they drive down the field. They get into Georgia Tech territory, get in the red zone, and 4th-and-1, they need a yard. They cannot pick up a yard on Georgia Tech in the red zone. That one could have definitely came back to bite them, especially. Really, this right here, arguably the biggest play of the game, a missed field goal by Georgia Tech after yet again driving down the field, 79 yards this drive by Georgia Tech. They get within the 10-yard line of Georgia. They elect to go for a 25-yard field goal and miss it. Without a doubt, if they make that field goal, they win the game. And hindsight's 2020. I'm not saying they should have gone for it. You have to make a 25-yard field goal, but brother, if they make this field goal and the lead is 20-0 rather than what it was 17-0, they win this game. I mean, we know that now in hindsight. So a brutal 25-yard missed field goal. But to answer a missed field goal, what does Georgia do? 3-and-out. They punt again. Georgia's offense was anemic in the first half. It was looking terrible. Then Georgia Tech, after their missed field goal, come right back down yet again. Another drive now, 4 for 4 of getting into Georgia territory, and they capped this one off with their first touchdown of the game. It was a 2 yard run by Haynes King, by the way, Haynes King, probably playing the game of his career. Used to be a Texas A&M quarterback, transferred to Georgia Tech last year, had a really good first year at Georgia Tech, and this year he's had some monster games, and this being the best of them all, really. So now you're down 10-0. Georgia fans probably weren't too worried at this point. I mean, they were down, what, 13-0 against Tennessee, or at least 10-0. So they've been down at home this month. It's nothing new to them. But to answer this Georgia Tech touchdown, Georgia fumbles the ball. Who fumbled it? Dominic Lovett. It was a good pass by Carson Beck. They pick up the first down, but Dominic Lovett loses the football. So now Georgia Tech has the ball back after going up 10-0, and they score yet again back-to-back touchdowns. And if you're keeping track now, this means 5 for 5 in the first half. Georgia Tech, all 5 of their drives got into Georgia territory. Georgia did not force a punt in the first half. They got ran all over. I mean, Georgia Tech beat Georgia. You could even say dominated Georgia on the lines of scrimmage in Athens. Shocking, really. But this was a 4 yard pass to Jamal Haynes from Haynes King deep in the red zone. Touchdown, 17-0. And then Georgia on the last drive of the game, they don't have that much time. They got about 25 seconds. They cannot put together a scoring drive. They didn't even get in range. They got in range, actually. They did. They did a good job there. Peyton Woodring missed a 53-yarder. It wasn't even close, by the way. So you have Georgia with multiple scoring opportunities in the first half, walked away with 0 points. You have Georgia Tech 5 for 5 on their drives. Georgia is absolutely lucky that this game was not worse than 17 to nothing. It could have been 20 to nothing. It could have been 23 to nothing. I mean, I'm not going to say poor management by Georgia Tech because they dominated Georgia in the first half, but I know hindsight, they're looking back at this like, man, we really could have iced this thing in the first half. But we've seen several games already this year from Georgia where they come out terrible. And listen, say whatever you want. This really was a terrible performance by Georgia in a lot of categories, but you cannot say this team quits. We saw in the Alabama game, we saw it coming back against Tennessee. This team, when it looks like they're down and out, they have that fire deep within them. I'll give them all the credit in the world when it comes to that. But then, so you have to assume, right? They got chewed out at halftime from Kirby Smart. But what do they do to start the second half? 3 and out. I mean, I'm sure people started to leave at this point, right? I mean, you have to just be completely demoralized and defeated after they just do nothing in the first half and they come out first drive of the second half 3 and out. I mean, that was just a backbreaker right there. And this is kind of a critique or a criticism, if I will, of the Georgia offense. They are so bad on first and second down. I mean, you want to talk about a lack of explosive plays from this Georgia team on their first 6 or 7 drives? I don't think they had a single play on first or second down that was like more than 10 yards. I mean, they're so conservative and they put themselves in all of these third and medium, third and long, obvious passing situations where they can't get creative as an offense. And I mean, it looked bad, man. It looked really, really bad the first hour of this game, hour and a half. But then Georgia Tech, really with a chance to ice it, they fumbled the ball. It was who was it that fumbled it? Oh no, it was a 3 and out. Sorry, it was a 3 and out by Georgia Tech. They punt. Anthony Evans, the Georgia return man, muffs the punt, but they somehow recover. Thankfully, oh my God, Georgia tried to lose this game in so many ways. So finally, now, after who knows what, 35 minutes of game time, Georgia finally puts a drive together, and they score their first touchdown of the game on a let's see here, Oscar Delp touchdown. Okay, yeah, I remember that one. That was a pretty good touchdown right there by Georgia. So now it's close, but by the way, they don't get the 2 point conversion. So it's 20-6 instead of 20-7, or 17-6, I should say. Then Georgia Tech drives right back down. Georgia got its first stop of the game, but then it doesn't matter because Georgia Tech goes, what is this, 90 yards? Yes, this was a 90-yard drive here by Georgia Tech. Just embarrassing by Georgia. But they hold them to a field goal. That's all you can say, I guess. But yeah, truly, truly shocking here from the Georgia defense. But then now, as you can see, Georgia gets rolling. 75-yard touchdown drive. They march down the field in 13 plays, cap it off with a Nate Frazier touchdown. Then back in the hands of Georgia Tech here. They score a touchdown, make it 27-13 here. 6 plays, all it took, by the way, 6 plays. I mean, they could not be stopped. Could not be stopped. Haynes King runs it in from 11 yards out. Then Georgia answers back and forth, back and forth. The second half was electrifying. Georgia marches down the field, 75 yards or 73 or whatever it was. Carson Beck throws a 17-yard touchdown to Dominic Lovett here, makes it 20-27. Then, arguably, the play of the game. Georgia Tech is red hot by the time. They go for it on third and short. It looks like they get it, but actually, Dan Jackson, the Georgia safety, gets a massive hit on Haynes King, forces the football to come loose, and I believe, Chaz Chambliss recovers the fumble in Georgia Tech territory. So now Georgia's set up with a short field, and they take advantage of that. By the way, look at the time on the clock here. There's only 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter when this happens. Georgia, they take advantage. They drive down the field. They do not settle for a field goal. They score a touchdown and tie the game up, courtesy of a second Dominic Lovett touchdown here. Great pass, by the way, by Carr. I remember that one. That was one of their touchdowns of the game. Quick to the sideline. Good touchdown there. Georgia ties it up. Then Georgia Tech, they try and ice the game, drive down the field. They get close. It looked kind of dangerous, but on the 4th and 1, to get themselves close to field goal range, they do not convert, and that's pretty much the end of the regulation. So now, look at the score carefully here. 27-27 is what this game was when it entered overtime. Oh, where do we start here? Let's just start with the first overtime, okay? Each team goes down and scores a touchdown with relative ease. Georgia really was capped off with this London Humphreys 14-yard pass by Carson Beck. I mean, easy, completely easy. Keep in mind, Georgia is red hot offensively by this point. They get off, they set the tone in overtime with a touchdown, but Georgia Tech, they answer right back. 4 plays. Hayden King throws a 12-yard touchdown to Eric Singleton, 34-34. The second set of overtime, Georgia Tech, they get the ball right back, and what do? They score their second touchdown in like 3 or 4 minutes. Only took him 3 plays here. Haynes King, after, well, it was a Malik Rutherford 20-yard run. Then Haynes King runs it in for 1 yard. He punches it in, and they fail, however. They fail the 2 point conversion. So Georgia then has a chance to win the game as long as they score a touchdown and convert the 2 point conversion. They score a 25-yard touchdown on a wheel route to Cash Jones out of the backfield, but they fail to convert the 2 point conversion. So after 2 sets of overtimes, teams have converted. They've scored all 4 of their potential touchdowns. So now it's 40-40, and we enter the stupid, I think. I hate these new overtime rules. They should just keep going back and forth with touchdowns. So we stopped that, and instead of 25 yards out, we move to 3 yards out. And now here we go. And just the complete madness. And I'm not even going to try and summarize all of this back and forth, back and forth. It was about half an hour of Georgia and Georgia Tech trying and failing, back and forth, 2 point conversions. They could not one up the other. If one team failed to convert the 2 point conversion, then the other team convert the two, or the other team failed to convert the 2 point conversion. If one team scored on the 2 point conversion, the other team just matched, and we went back and forth until finally, on Georgia Tech's last opportunity, they failed to convert the 2 point conversion. It was a really weird play. I think it was like they had some weird trick play where the offensive line was off center. They called a pass interference, I think, on Georgia. But then even closer, they failed to convert, and then finally Georgia at the very end punch it right up the middle with Nate Frazier and win the game at like 1 a.m. I think it was freezing. By the way, I have to add that in here. It was like 20 something degrees in Athens. Absolute madness, ridiculous. I mean, it was crazy to watch. I can only imagine the emotions there. And it's really a good thing, honestly, that what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh yeah, it's a good thing that this was not like a must-win game for Georgia because technically, like, even if they would have lost this game, they still would have had a chance to like make the college football playoffs. So in that sense, it really wasn't that important, if you will. But man, I'm because if it was, a couple of Georgia fans would have absolutely died last night. The heart pressure and the stress this game put on people, it was brutal. I'm sure a couple of people got frostbite. Honestly, they were probably out there for like 5 6 hours. That I feel bad for them. Let's just take a look at some of the best players here. Haynes King over 400 total yards, 5 touchdowns. Carson Beck also with 5 touchdowns. Arguably his best game of the season. Like I said, he did not start off on the right foot. Their first 5 or 6 drives were brutal, but he turned it on and he was on fire down the stretch. Jamal Haynes, the running back for Georgia Tech, had a massive game. Nate Frazier, Georgia did not run the ball as well as Georgia Tech, obviously. Georgia Tech, by the way, their last 2 games, I think, involved a win over Miami and now this game with Georgia. Ridiculous. Dominic Lovett, he had a bad fumble, but he made that up with a pair of touchdowns. Eric Singleton for Georgia Tech had a really good game. Malik Rutherford had a plethora of plays. I mean, everybody really stepped up to the plate. Arian Smith had a couple. I'd say he had 3 bad drops in this game. But I mean, there's not much positive to say about him, really. I mean, the Georgia defense, say what you want about them, they looked terrible for the large majority of this game. But when it came down to it in the second set of overtimes with the 2 point conversions, they got more than enough stops to win this game. So they gave up a lot of points. Gave up, what is it? How many yards they gave up? They gave up 563 yards. But I mean, yeah, man, they closed the door when it mattered the most. Like, this was an insane game. The takeaways, I guess, Georgia now, they punched their ticket to the college football playoff. It's a lock. No matter what happens in the SEC championship game, we will see Georgia playing football late in December. And then Georgia Tech, listen, they deserve a ton of credit for this game. I mean, they, you know, the program was not very relevant before Brent Key got there, the current head coach. And we're talking about back-to-back years now, good seasons. Last year with the upset over Miami. This year, yet again with another upset over Miami. They beat Florida State in week 0. They've had 3 massive moments just this year alone. So that deserves a lot of credit. They are now, I mean, they should get a lot of transfers this offseason. I expect Georgia Tech to be a team and a program that continues to be on the rise. And, Georgia now, I believe they put the stat up that their senior class now has never lost a home game. Their senior class that came in whatever year it was, 2020 or 2021, they have not lost a home game. Georgia has not lost a home game the last 4 years or whatever it is. That is truly impressive. Um, and it was senior night too, so just a magical atmosphere. And what a game! Truly, what a game! That's gonna be it for this video, man. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, and I will see all of you on the next one. Peace.